And we're back in the lounge.
That's right. Back in the lounge, brother.
Nothing like a nice hot cup of black coffee. Welcome to the lounge. Welcome to the Men's Lounge, LA.
Real talk men.
Real talk men.
Welcome back. Men's Lounge, LA. We're in the house. As usual, as always, checking in with you guys. How you doing, brother?
How was your week?
Week is good, man. Week is good. You know, it's been hot as hell here in LA right now. Weather's hot.
Yeah, we're
It's summertime.
Yes, we're going through a little heat wave right now.
Big time. Big time.
So,
but I'm good, man. I'm good. You know, we back on this this subject that our audience seem to like, and you seem to like because you want to bring it up every time.
but we're on the subject. We're on the subject of child support.
Will it ever end?
And it never does. So that's our title. That's our theme. Child support.
It gives us a lot of material.
But you know, that's one thing that will never exhaust. That's one thing that will never, one subject that will never be exhausted.
That's true.
Is child support. Child support, relationships, money.
Yeah. But that's our niche. You know, we want to empower men in all those areas.
Right.
You know, any of those areas that we experience personally, that we do our research on. It's about male empowerment. That's what this channel is built around. So I'm okay with it, but then again, you know, this is a hot topic, man. This is a tough one. This one, it hit me hard.
But then or now?
Then, not now. So I'm done with it. I've been done with it for years. So don't put that back on me.
Well, it's still a hot topic, even then and now, because when the subject of child support comes up, you know, it does something to me.
Well, it brings back a lot of bad memories for me because, you know, as we get through this show, as we talk about how certain men felt like they were just a paycheck, and get to that point, then I'll probably have a lot to say.
Yeah.
But either way it go, you know, I'm done with it. But I wouldn't wish it on no one. But we'll cover a lot of that.
We'll cover a lot of that. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the rest of you, wherever you are in the world. I'm Frederick Douglass Southern. I'm your host, a.k.a. Sir Frederick.
And I'm Coach Chris, your partner in these conversations. Welcome to the Men's Lounge, LA.
Here at the Men's Lounge, we empower men. We empower men to embrace their masculinity. We empower men, good men, to become better men and embrace their humanity. And yes, we celebrate the women at the same time, because without our women, we'd be out of balance.
I always tip my cap to the women. I was raised by a single mother, a true single mother. So without our women, we're doing nothing.
Once again, our discussion tonight is that emotional subject for men and fathers who are paying child support. It's not about avoiding their responsibilities. It's not about blaming the mother. And the important question is this: how can we support the men through this child support thing without them feeling broke or broken down or broken up?
Yeah, that's the tough part right there, because, you know, they say the money is the root of all evil. I'm sure you heard that before.
Yep.
So when it comes to this particular topic, and money seems to be the crux of the issue when it comes down to people feeling a certain way, either receiving it or giving it.
Right.
Forget about that child.
This is going to be a long topic on fathers and support and all that.
Yeah.
And we have several segments when it comes to the child support. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure we're not going to finish it all today, so we'll have something to look forward to and unfold. Yeah. In fact, you mind if I just read a little bit to the audience some of the things that we're going to cover, or no?
Coming up right after this.
They're good men. When I should be outside, they need to be addressed. Quiet, you brain. Wrong mental box.
Cut all that out.
And we're back in the lounge.
Back in the lounge.
We're back in the lounge. Welcome back. Some of the things that we're going to cover besides child support, why many fathers feel frustrated, what many fathers don't know, paternity, truth, and accountability, the 50-50 parenting question, that's a good one. What about the children? And then we have 10 rules for every man involved in this. 10 rules every father should follow. But today, we're just going to focus in on the child support aspect of it.
Yeah, we give you as much as we can. Like I say, these things are, they can take a lot of time. We never want to do information overload with our audience because we want them to be able to just stay on. Absorb. Get it, because it's about empowerment. We're not, experts. We're experts in going through it. But we're not saying, hey, I got a credential right here on the wall showing that I went to college for 50 years, saying that this is what it's all about. No, I experienced it personally. You experienced it personally. And I have friends who experience it personally. And we talk about it as men. So
here, our listening audience, please remember to like and subscribe.
Right.
How many hours did we have last month? 110 viewing hours.
Yeah, but it's not about that right now.
Well, but
and the reason why, I'm saying we want to, like you said, like and subscribe. But we've shown some growth thanks to you guys.
But
we want to show that appreciation. We did that in other videos, but I don't want to lose track of what we got going on here.
Well, this is content that matters.
It's not about us,
right? And this is content that matters, and we want to support you. What is child support supposed to do? Supporting children financially, shared parental responsibilities, the original purpose of the system. What was child support originally designed to accomplish? Is the system still fulfilling its original purpose? Has the focus shifted from helping children to collecting a check? And what does successful child support actually look like? That's what we're covering today. And what I've discovered about men and fathers when it comes to child support, we really don't mind. A lot of us don't mind paying child support. Mm-hmm. I think that one of the biggest issues and frustrations in child support is the fathers not spending enough time with their children. That seems to be one of the biggest frustrations that I've...
it was for me. It was never about the money for me, but I want to make this clear. For real fathers, it's never about the money.
Gotcha.
Ever.
Right.
For real dads. The system can get you screwed up, but a real father, it's never about the money. I want to make that clear first and foremost with our listening audience. So this is always going to be a struggle. But like I say, when it comes to money, it loses focus on those children. And that's what we want to try to convey here. That you guys truly know and understand that it's not about, like he said, bashing any of these two that's going through it, the father or the mother. We need to focus on these children. That's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line. One of the frustrations that has been expressed to me was that if you don't pay child support, you can't see your kid.
See, that's that weaponizing the system right there.
Right.
Man. And that's part of the frustration that men go through. So when it's not, this is not fair when it comes to that, man, because you're still not thinking about that child. Because if you're going to use this child, okay, you're not picking milk because you're not paying me enough, or, whatever the courts are saying, I'm going to go back and make some changes here and there. When kids are involved as a weapon, that is just low down, dirty shame.
When you hear the word child support, and our listening audience, when you hear the word or the phrase child support, what runs through your mind? The first thing that runs through my mind would be dollars, finances, money, child support.
Yeah.
But it's actually bigger than that. And it's looking at the child or children's needs, being there for them, supporting them emotionally, physically, the things they're involved in with school.
When I went through my situation, man, I realized that, and that's why I said it was never about the money. Me being the guy that grew up without a father, my passion was always to be that father.
Right.
So money was never an equation, even though I still had to pay it and I got it reduced. I went through that whole process. It was a strain. I did not want to not have that time with my children. So that reduced access to children is where my frustration came from, because I was with my children every day anyway. But when they had to go back with their mom, my frustration came from that, because that was still that reduced access. I did get my visitation time according to the paper, but it's just that I feel bad for men when they have to go through that reduced access to children.
Yeah, I think that's a big frustration. You know, when you hear child support, one of the things that we don't look at or see is the parents supporting each other. I'll give you a good example. When I divorced and we separated, of course, I wanted to spend that time with my children. That was it. I get kind of a lump in my throat just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And the mother and I, we didn't have a good working relationship. Again, folks, I'm not trying to put the mother down or my children's mother down or anything like that. It's just the way it was at the time. We didn't work together. I didn't know how to work with her, and she definitely didn't know how to work with me. Mm-hmm. And I think it was like a 60-40 split, 70-30. And I would go over to pick the kids up, and I asked, would you come and get the kids or drop them off? Her attitude was, no, if you want to see the kids, you pick them up and drop them off. I couldn't argue with that, because I wanted to see my children, spend time with them. So I did the 2 round trips. Mm-hmm. I picked them up and I dropped them off. Mm-hmm. So when you hear child support, it's outside of money. It's situations like that, whereas you and the other parent, you communicate, you talk to one another to try to satisfy the children and get that part of the support taken care of.
Right. But see, that's the part of support that's missing, like you said, because it's always based around some kind of money, right. It's a transaction. So, but if, like you're saying, and what I think I'm hearing you say, other support comes from how the children see the parents interact with each other.
Yes.
You know? So that's my part that needs to be addressed during these kind of shows that we're doing. We will have success stories on child support as we go through this entire process of talking about child support. But overall, what you're saying doesn't sound like it was any balance there.
There was no
children. Probably, I'm sure they saw it.
There was no balance there, and you men, you fathers in the listening audience, viewing audience, find a way to work it out with your spouse. You may have some women watching this, mothers watching this as well. That's fine. Find a way to communicate effectively with the other parent.
Effective communication.
Whereas, and keep in mind what you're doing now, what you're saying now, it has an everlasting effect on the children.
Yeah.
And you want to make that example to the children that my parents can work together.
Yeah.
They can talk, and that the parents divorce, but they're not divorcing the children or the responsibility.
You talked about a situation that happened with you that you just mentioned a minute ago. I can talk about a situation that our listening audience can go back and actually look at. The show that you interviewed my sons.
When I interviewed your sons?
Yeah, the Blueprint.
Yes.
How does he, the father in Blueprint? I don't even know. I can't remember my own titles right now. I wasn't part of the show until later, but
our dad raised us without a blueprint, something like that.
That's it. So, and my son Nathan had said to you that he know that his parents, meaning his mom and myself, had a good co-parenting relationship. He said he's never seen an argument, maybe just one time, but he's never seen an argument between the two of us. Now, that's not to say there was nothing going on behind the scenes that they didn't know about, because I never argued around my children with their mom at any time. So that was just part of me, and I don't like to argue anyway. That's just who I am. It's probably on the phone, she's saying something, or on the phone, I'm saying something, that's about it, and they weren't on that phone call. So, he saw a good co-parenting relationship, which was exactly what they needed during that process. So never put your children through seeing that kind of toxic energy between the two of you in that room. Men, never do that.
Now, the question for a listening audience, what was child support originally designed to do?
Child support was originated with, it was called the British Poor Law. And we cover that in child support or child abandonment. So go back and watch that show. We have a whole library on this stuff, guys. Go check it out. So the British Poor Law, they had it set up to where the person who had the least during that time would not be destitute, you know, and it didn't come from the husband. It didn't come from the wife. It came from a law that they set, almost similar to welfare, if you want to think about it, from using modern words.
Well, no, welfare came from the governmental
I'm just using
system.
it as an example how
Gotcha.
it could have been similar to welfare, because that's what we know that's called now, but it was called British Poor Law. That was the origins of child support, you know, and then it evolved into what it is to this day, which is a complete mockery of the system.
Oh my gosh, it's horrible. But the whole point and purpose of child support is to support the children.
That's correct.
And whichever one of the parents are making more money is the one that would typically have to pay
Right.
the child support. And it's typically the man, because the man typically is making more money.
He's usually the breadwinner.
And that's where it comes from. So the man is typically the one who pays the child support. That's what it was originally. And I have some friends. And men that I know that they're attached to that money. They're attached to that money. She's not using the money for which it was intended for. She's getting her hair and nails done and all that.
Yeah.
Fellas, if you're paying child support, let it go. When the money leaves your hands, it's no longer yours. It's theirs. And you can't dictate what she does with it, how she does it, where she spends it. And it's frustrating, but there's nothing you can do about it. And, you know, the door swings in reverse. It's a very small door, whereas some of the mothers are paying child support as well. I don't hear a whole lot about it, and but it happens. But you men who are paying child support, and you're hung up on her getting her nails and hair done and this and that, let it go.
I have a big problem with that.
Me saying let it go?
Nah, you can say what you want to say.
What?
And that's what they're doing in a lot of cases. Not all cases, but a lot of cases. Women are not using it for the children. You know, not the bulk of it. But I look at it like this. If my children are still calling me and asking me for something for where they're living with their mom at the time, instead of asking them when they're with me, that means she's not using it on the children. Because I'm paying enough to where I'm still covering both households.
Right.
And I mean that, because when they're with me, I'm not calling her saying, hey, let them come with food. Let them bring their clothes. You know, let them bring their body washes and all that other stuff. I got that covered at my crib. So when they calling me up and say, Dad, you know what? We don't have no food over here. Can you, stop at the store and bring us some food?
Right.
That happened to me personally, bro. That happened to me personally. So I disagree with you on that, on them saying let it go. There should be some kind of way to measure that this child support is being used so that kids would not suffer no matter what household they're in.
Even though I paid the child support, and that's fine, some men are paying more than that, because they buy the uniforms, equipment if they're in sports.
I did that.
Right. Some of them just do more than that. They just go up and beyond.
Yeah, but see,
above and beyond.
That's my point, though. My point is I still covered both households. I covered both households with child support. I covered my household because that's what I do. I'm a provider. And then I'm covering her household again because they calling me because she didn't take care of the groceries. Why you didn't take care of the groceries? Why the boys are calling me? Why they don't have certain things that they didn't have in your house? I'm never saying bring the clothes over here. I'm never saying that. They have clothes over at my place, you know? And then when they go back and they have the clothes on their back that I bought, I don't care if they don't come back. Because if they need something with me, I'm going to give it to them. That's what I did. That's tough for a lot of guys. Some guys can't do that. I'm not trying to brag, but I'm just letting you guys know that I'm not in favor of just letting it go. It should be a way to measure how this child support, like you said, child support, not mother support.
Right.
If she's getting alimony, that's for her. You know, that's your money. But if it's child support, give it to those children.
Now, I had one lady that actually did that. She took her husband back to court. Now, the kids are grown.
Mm-hmm.
Her kids were grown. And she actually took the father back to court for back child support rearage. And she won. He was paying this rearage every month. And she actually took the money and gave it to her boys.
Okay.
That's the first and last time I ever heard that happening.
You know what, man? I'm not going to ever say there's cases out there where they're good women doing what they're supposed to do, just like they're good men what they're supposed to do. This platform is never about bashing. We talk about behavior.
Right.
The behavior of a woman who decides that she want to go ahead and get her hair done and her nails done and not take care of this child, knowing that the father is still going to support them outside of what else he's doing, that's where I have a big problem with it. So yeah, you saying what you're saying. That's just your belief. And that's fine. You can, tell the listening audience, that all the time. And there's some men out there going to understand what you're saying, just like they understand what I'm saying. That's the balance in what we're talking about, because every situation is not ideal. And by not being ideal, you have to learn how to really get through these things so you can make sure, like I said, the ultimate goal is to take care of these children. By any means necessary.
By every means necessary.
Yeah.
You know, while you're speaking that, I was thinking of, man, I just lost my thought.
It's all right, man. You 6 figures in age. That's cool. And you're older than me. But no. This subject here brings on a lot of passion. And that passion sounds like anger. And that's the difference that you guys, when you're dealing with people, have to learn the difference between passion and anger. Passion is because of the cause. When you have a cause like our autism series,
right,
we became passionate about that. That's nothing to be angry about. So understand the difference in child support when it came down to old wounds and understanding it. Yeah, when I speak, I may sound a little bit more aggressive in my voice. I'm saying it because I know some men are still going through that kind of stuff that I went through, that you went through.
I went through for a long time.
So I'm telling these guys, you're not alone.
I paid the rearage, and I spoke on this just recently. I was paying rearage, child support rearage, and my kids were well into their 30s.
That's crazy.
She was still collecting.
That's crazy.
And she refused to let it go. So we want to hear from you, our listening audience, our viewing audience. We want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, your experience, someone you may know, and leave a comment in the comment section. Also, remember to like and subscribe
to the channel.
Through the channel. And we're talking about child support. What's it supposed to do?
Yeah, and if you're experiencing it right now, you're having a hard time, drop us a line at info@themensloungela.com. Drop us a line. You guys are not alone out there. Like I said, when I speak, it may sound like anger, but it's not as passionate. I know a lot of men out there like this. I know a lot of men out there that are not. As a matter of fact, I want to hear from these guys as well. The things that you're going through, that you're actually getting through smoothly at this moment, it could change. But if it's smooth and you went through the whole process and it worked out fine, we want to hear about that as well, because that can help the next man.
Do you feel that the system has fulfilled its obligation?
No. Because there wouldn't be no frustration on our sheets. There wouldn't be no frustration for us to talk about, because this would never be an issue. So if it did fulfill itself, and once again, like I said earlier, we're not excusing no deadbeat guy. Let me make that clear. No deadbeat guy is accepted in this lounge. That's the man we're reaching out to empower, to open up the mind of that man about taking care of that child. So all you haters out there, that's fine. Hate all you want. But those men are not the men we're talking about. We're talking about the father who's involved, the father who's supporting, and the father who's trying to make sure his children are okay. That's the men we're talking about. And we still want to support them because they still suppress those things in because they feel, hey, I'm good. I don't need to talk about this because I'm taking care of my children. But up here, they still bothered by it.
Yeah, you know, that system, the child support system, it's been skewed. Not it's been skewed. It is skewed.
Big time.
And the system favors the mother. And what gets me, and I tell you, man, it really, really burns my biscuits, is when someone in the courts system say, this is in the best interest of the child. Now, how can you tell me what's going to be in my best interest for my children? You're going to dictate that to me.
If it's the best interest, why are you taking me out of their life?
Or just giving me 60-40, 70-30.
You know what? Judge Judy did say something about that. Let's show our listening audience, the viewing audience, this clip, and the listening audience to listen to this clip. Check this out.
Supposed to in this country treat mothers and fathers the same with regard to custody. No one has a less equal position. However, when I practiced in the family court and then was later a judge in the family court, I found that law was honored in the breach. Most judges and most psychologists that served the court always thought that the mother was better. And I didn't always find that was true.
Welcome back to the lounge.
That's powerful.
That's very powerful.
A lot of people respect her.
And you know what? She was in the system. She was actually a judge in the court.
Yeah.
And she says, I'm not so sure.
It was family court.
It was family court.
Right before she became on TV.
Right.
As she was.
And she spoke. That was bold. That was very bold for her to speak against the system.
Exactly. Because she's part of the system.
Right.
It's skewed.
And she saw it and she said, hey, this is unfair. She says, I don't think I agree with that.
Exactly. That's Judge Judy. So that's why, like I say, we talk about that passion thing. If you listen to something like that, and that was an old clip because that was Larry King with her.
Right.
He's been gone a long time.
Right.
And then she looked younger. So
she actually looked kind of nice, huh?
Oh no, man. Her husband's a judge too. He ain't trying to mess with her.
That's a compliment.
It's all good. I never had no problem with her. But we just letting you guys know that there's a lot of people out there that are really, really hurting with this particular topic and don't think there's resources out there for them. And there are. And then we'll put resources in our comment section there in the description so you guys can know that there's things out there that you can do to actually get the support you need. And also, like I say, never lose focus on the main thing, and that's your children. Never. I'm strong on that.
What does successful child support look like? What does that look like? Successful child support.
That's a good question because that's something we're going to cover in the show when we talk about successful child support, But by the system being so one-sided, it's kind of hard to really answer that question without actually going through that much research. Right now, we're covering this portion of it. We'll be able to answer that more during the research of that. But if you ask me just off the cuff, like
off the cuff, what does actual successful child support look like to you? What does that look like?
50-50 and no money exchanged.
That's what it looks like to you? Successful?
Yes. The reason why? Because that gives that balance. It's almost similar to that story you told about splitting the house. When you said splitting the home, you never said anything about child support from what I recall. How there was no child support involved because the parents wanted to make sure they keep kind of normalcy for the children.
Right.
So that's probably not the full situation of child support. Just a minute. Hold on a second. That would be ideal. But like I said in that show, it takes two willing people and understanding people to do that. I had the problem of not being around my children for 2 weeks. That's the thing I really don't understand how they coped and got through. But for me, successful child support would be the kids not seeing toxic energy, dysfunction in any case, which is still considered toxic, and anything that's showing that they're going to be off balance when it comes down to being moved to another part of the city, going to different schools, and then just being uplifted because one parent feels like or think that they have an upper hand because that situation of, now I got the kids and I'm gonna use them against this person, so that's not success. That's just straight up bitterness, and that's just wrong because you're not thinking about that child. So successful child support to me is 50-50, and the kids never know anything about nothing toxic. That's successful child support to me.
I like that. So we want to hear from you. What does actual successful child support look like? We want to hear about that in the comments. I think you're onto something, because I think I don't think you're onto something. You are onto something. And it starts with the parents. Successful communication with the mother and the father. Not showing the bitterness or the toxicity. They're able to communicate effectively. And when I divorced, I asked my children about it, and they said, well, we love you both. We just hate to see y'all fight.
Right.
That was the most damaging.
That's what's got to be eliminated.
Yeah.
Because children need time with their parents, man. I've been going to Disneyland, quite a bit lately, me and my lady, and I can see the children out there and how they're playing. In a lot of cases, I see families where it's male and female. In a lot of cases, I just see the female. There are cases where I see them just the male. I'm not asking these people what those dynamics are. I'm just observing, because to me, everything's content. I went to the zoo, the San Diego Zoo, caught the train, and it was beautiful. Me and my ladies just kicking it this past weekend, and we had a wonderful time. Went to the San Diego Zoo, saw the same dynamics. Mothers with their children, no father around. Fathers with their children, no mother around. Both parents, I saw the same dynamic, but it was about those children. It wasn't about anything else in my mind. I'm thinking like, look at these children are having fun. They're having fun with that parent, with both parents, or that parent.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about, not creating a toxic environment when it's individually, and especially when you're together. And when you break up, definitely not at that point. Keep that toxic stuff out of these children's lives. Because, the mental part of that, when it comes to children, is hard for them to get over.
And they can't unsee it.
That creates a more of a societal issue down the road.
Right.
And that's why I say no real father is going to ever not support his children. Ever. So that's my take on that, man. And it's just never gonna cease. Never gonna cease, man.
Speaking of takeaway, what's key takeaway? The goal of child support should be supporting the children, not creating conflict between the parents.
That's what we're talking about.
Let me read that again. The goal of child support should be supporting the children, not creating conflict between the parents.
Yep.
And I have another story I want to share with you. Another couple that actually split the house.
Oh, really? There was more than one?
It was more than one.
Wow.
And I was doing rideshare at the time, and she stayed out in...
out there somewhere.
He out there somewhere. Pasadena, that's where it was.
There you go.
That's where it was. Pasadena.
Somewhere out there.
Right. And the court system was actually in her favor. She said that the divorce, a settlement, she says, I could have devastated him financially, but I couldn't do it because he's a great father.
Okay.
She says the divorce settlement was more than adequate, more than fair, but I knew it would devastate him financially in his retirement, and I wasn't trying to do that because I wanted to have a good working relationship with the father. He's a great dad. I asked, what did you do? How did you come to this resolve? And she says, we split the house. 1 week on. I think you might like this. 1 week on, 1 week off. She stayed with her father. He stayed with the mother, week on, week off.
Okay.
And that's how they split the house. She didn't stick her hand in his pocket up to her elbow.
Okay.
You know, and they were able to communicate effectively. So as soon as I finished reading this, it's supporting the children and not creating conflict between the parents.
Yeah.
And that made me think of that. So if you're going through this, find a way to communicate effectively with the other parent. You do that, that's going to really, really create a supportive atmosphere, a loving atmosphere. It squelches the toxicity, you know. I'm not going to say y'all not going to argue, and I know you will, and most couples do that has
Right.
broken up, you know,
Right.
feel some kind of way. And as long as that's not done in front of the children, communicate. Be able to communicate fairly and squarely and effectively and in an adult manner and not attacking each other. And I think when you attack the problem and not each other, it brings on a different kind of relationship. You're still in a relationship.
Yeah, you know, that's the Men's Lounge LA. We're strong on self-care. And that's why we're talking like we talk when it comes down to focusing on the children, because like I said just a second ago, it brings on societal issues later on with these children. You know, so if we want to clean up our society, it starts with our children right now. There's a lot of them out there right now that's just lost. That's generation after generation. But when it comes to this particular topic, when they're taking that emotional conflict into their life, into schools and this and that, it just ruins them. It ruins them. So what you're saying about not arguing around these children, that's like I said, all that toxic energy around these children, like we both said, that's what we need to focus on, people, you know, and it's self-care. So when it comes to you getting self-care, to talk to your therapist, talk to your pastor, talk to the Men's Lounge LA, and talk to someone so you can really get the stuff off your chest to come to the reasonable conclusion of it's not about her, it's not about me, it's about them, or it's about that one. Because if you have one or more, it's not about you guys. That selflessness, when it comes to this, is going to be hard to, especially on how you broke up. You know, because a lot of people break up for many reasons.
Oh my
and
gosh.
that's why you're fighting each other still.
Right.
And that's why that child is suffering, because you're still fighting each other because of how it went down. That's why you need that mental care, that self-care, so you can get through this. So keep that in mind. Self-care at the Men's Lounge LA, we're strong on it. Start working on that immediately. When there's some things going on, when you get those divorce papers, your first thing should be do is address that and go right to your therapist.
Listening audience, we want to hear from you, and we have several more. We have several more segments that we're going to focus on. I mean, this is a really deep subject. How many fathers feel frustrated? What many fathers don't know? Paternity truth and accountability. And what about the children? What are the children saying? And of course, 10 rules every father should follow. So those are the things that we're going to be covering. And if you have a unique story or something that you would like to share with us, reach out to us. info@themensloungela.com. We want to hear from you. What you have to say. You might even be a guest on our show.
Yeah.
Because you might fit into one of those segments that I just mentioned.
I mean, we're going to go on a limb here someday, and sooner or later, these live shows is going to be, we want to see comments coming up on our live feed.
Right.
You know, so we can have that, you know, conversing with you guys directly on what's going on with you at this moment. So, you know, we've building our brand, we've building our platform here, and we're on all platforms. Speaking of platforms, you know, from every radio station out there to every
iHeart, Apple, Amazon,
Pandora,
Spotify.
Yeah, we're all over the place.
We're
guys.
all over the place.
You can't miss us at this point, you know. So when it's all said and done, we're here to stay, and we're here to empower. Speaking of empowering, why don't you give our men our empowering moment right now?
To every father carrying the weight of child support, court battles, or co-parenting challenges, don't let frustration turn into a surrender. Stay informed, stay involved, and never, ever, ever forget that your presence in your child's life matters more than you may realize. Your children need more than just your support. They need their father.
Empowering moment.
Empowering moment. They need their father. So fight for your children. Stay in the picture. Find ways. Be creative to spend time around and with your children. Even though the court says you get 60-40, 70-30, when you find ways,
yeah, it works out.
That time starts showing up. So
yeah. Just like I was saying about the amusement park and the zoo, seeing those children,
right,
they were happy around that parent, those parents, or whatever their situation was. It was love. It was great to see, man.
And we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
info@themensloungela.com.
That's right.
Coach Chris, take us home.
Like he just empowered you, as we empower men, everyone benefits, especially and including the woman who's looking for a man like that. Like and subscribe to the channel.
Here at the Men's Lounge, we empower men, we strengthen families, and we're transforming lives with content that matters right here at the Lounge.
Thanks for watching.